Okay, everyone, this is my second attempt. The first one was a large fail. So hopefully this one is shorter than the 37 minutes that the last one was. So going to try and do a better job of speeding through it and focusing on the key points rather than talking about stuff that's already in the book chapter anyway. So in the book chapter that I've posted, 2016 Service Marketing Book, a really great chapter. I haven't given you all of the chapter, just the main pages. So if you read that and tackle the case and listen to this audio, you'll be in great shape. So King of Bling, this is all about cash, 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 money, 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 right? Pricing is one of the most positive things that we can do to represent the image that we portray to our customers, and it sends out so many signals, right? So are we bling or are we fake stuff? So there you go, that's very technical talk. So every professor is sad for using a Dilbert cartoon. I'm no different. I'm particularly sad as well. Although, give me credit, this is the only one I've used so far, and I promise not to use another one, but I do love this one, right? We can't compete on price. We also can't compete on quality, features, or service. That leaves fraud, which I'd like you to call marketing. That is kind of amusing. Anyway, so there you go. So agenda and objectives, we're going to look at appreciate pricing as part of the marketing mix. So there are 4 parts of the marketing mix: integrated marketing communications, product development and design, pricing, and then social media and community. Okay, and so and next week is the other P, is distribution, right? Some people call it place, distribution, and channels, right? So that's the other one we're going to be looking at. So integrated marketing communications is going to split into 2 parts. Advertising, PR, and then community and social media. So this is the first of the last section of the course. Last section of the class, third part, which is bringing products and services to market. And obviously, one of the most important things that you can do is to be confident in your pricing and know what kind of value you're creating with your customers, and demonstrate that in terms of how you negotiate with your customers, and be clear on the value that you provide, and shift away from commodity-based pricing. So there are 4 things that I'd like you to think about in terms of excellence in service pricing. Characteristics of organizations that do pricing really well. Number 1, customers perceive your price as fair. They don't think that you're a rip-off. They don't think that you're charging too much. But at the same time, they don't believe that they're getting a bargain, right? So fair pricing, reasonable pricing, value for money, right? And whenever you achieve that goal, then you're heading for success. Do your customers think your prices are fair? Number 2, your pricing decisions are driven by willingness to pay. And this really is down to customer segmentation, right? Have you different prices for different segments based on their willingness to pay? Customers get the features that they are willing to pay for, and you don't give away stuff for free that either they are willing to pay for or that they don't need. Okay, so it's based on segmentation and willingness to pay. Number 3, your employees are confident in negotiation in terms of prices with customers, right? Obviously, this particularly relates to B2B and enterprise customers, and probably mid-market as well, right? You train your staff on how best to price and negotiate. You stand behind your employees, when they're negotiating, and in terms of the decisions that they make, but you also reinforce pricing discipline. And that's really critical, okay? That there are only certain directions they can negotiate in, and you can't step out of those boundaries, because otherwise you're giving away the house, or you're not showing customers the value for money. And the 4th pillar of excellence in pricing is you ban the C word, and that's the commodity word, right? People perceive that there is value in dealing with TELUS over the competition, and you're not selling a commodity, you're selling a bundle of benefits that are better than they can get elsewhere. So much of pricing is about being confident and knowing that what you're doing fits with the image that you're creating. And this is in sync with the rest of your image, that integrated marketing communications, your distribution channels, and of course the products that you're selling as well. And is there any better example, even though again I've endlessly used them, of Apple, right? And again, Apple aren't perfect. They've been struggling at certain points as well. But certainly, their products and their pricing and the Apple stores, their distribution and their selected distribution outlets. Retailers, only certain retailers can sell their products, and of course, their integrated marketing communications are sending out a very clear message as to who they are, right? And then, of course, also Apple has brought in Apple Music as well recently, and isn't that a great example of pricing as well, right? So $9.99 if you want music for yourself, or $14.99 I think it is if you want a family or your family to access music. So I've signed up for that $14.99 dollars a month, so all my family can listen to Apple Music for free and get the expletive lyrics on all the songs rather than getting the clean versions. So my younger kids love listening to that. Great, the language has really increased dramatically since Apple Music came along. So how do you price that? Is $9.99 a fair price, or $14.99? How do you demonstrate the value of that price as well? And how do I, as a customer, appreciate whether it's worth that amount of money as well? And obviously, you can show the cost that you save by not having to buy music anymore, that you can get to access to music anywhere, whether in Wi-Fi or not. And so there are obviously a number of ways of deciding as to whether this is the case or not. Just while we're on Apple Music, I've got a little story for you about music. It's a beautiful segue, right? One of my best stories was told to my wife, who one of my wife's friends went to a wedding, and this happened. So the couple were getting married. Obviously, that's usually what happens at weddings. And they went to the organist a month before the wedding and said, "We would like you to play the theme from Robin Hood, which is the good old Canadian Bryan Adams. Everything I do it for you," right? It was 1991. It'd been number one in the UK for like 15 weeks, probably the longest. I think it's the longest number one of all time in the UK. And it was popular in Ireland, and everyone was kind of using it at weddings. So she went to the organist and said, "When we're walking down the aisle, will you play the Bryan Adams song, Everything I do it for you?"
Look into my eyes, you see what you mean to me.
Yes, Bryan Adams, isn't he brilliant? Kind of. Anyway, there you go. Such a romantic song, isn't it? I'm tearing up right now. Feel free to grab someone near to you as you're listening to this and dance with them. But can you imagine walking down the aisle listening to the song? Anyway, so that was what she asked the organist to play. And he said, sure, right? Now, she was a bit skeptical because this was an old guy and this was a modern song, but, she was busy with a wedding, so she went with it. So anyway, as they were walking down the aisle, they got married, obviously, and they were walking down the aisle, and the organist sat down, and, this was their big moment, playing Everything I Do It For You, romantic end to the wedding, and instead, of course, he'd got the wrong Robin Hood theme song. He thought it was the old classic Robin Hood theme song, which went something like this.
Robin Hood, riding through the glen. Robin Hood, with his band of men. Led by the bad, loved by the good. Robin Hood. Robin Hood, Robin Hood.
So anyway, as you can guess, that wasn't quite the song that they wanted. Do you like my singing as backing vocals there? Pretty cool, huh? Anyway, so apparently what she did was, they went with it, they skipped down the aisle, but very cleverly, they robbed the rich who were sitting in the church and gave to the poor. So stole a load of wallets and watches from the people who were sitting in expensive seats and gave to the people in the poor seats. So I think they handled that particularly well. Great story, one of my favorites of all time. So what are we, service pricing, right? Why is it so hard? Well, it's so hard to calculate the financial cost of creating a service process. Think about the difficulty in understanding your activity-based costing of services rather than manufacturing goods. And then also there are so many other factors that come into play in terms of the variability, the inputs and the outputs. Urgency becomes a huge part as well. So, how do you define a unit of service and establish a basis for pricing when, for so many different customers, you're providing so many different units of inputs and outputs, right? So each customer may use a completely different set of inputs and outputs. And so how do you price for that, right? Same service may be more value to some customers when delivered faster, right? How can you price that? And same customers, so different customers may appreciate the value of different services more than others. How do you price for that as well, right? So there's that sense of urgency that some customers are willing to pay for, but how do you identify that and seek that out? Also, customers do find pricing difficult to understand, risky, and sometimes unethical. Again, one of the best examples is Netflix. In late 2009, 2010, they decided to split out their streaming business versus their DVD. And rather than to charge $9.99 for both, they're going to charge $7.99 for the streaming and $7.99 for the DVD. So basically, if you got both, it would have been a 60% increase, right? Now, only 10% people were actually using both, but they went berserk. Customers were so angry, they lost 400,000 customers. And so you have to be very, very careful in terms of how you deliver your pricing. Another theme that I'm going to try and hit on as much as possible throughout this is this idea of we want to move from free to fee, right? Why give things away to customers when they're willing to pay for them? Only a couple of things happen. Number one, we don't take it seriously because we're giving it away for free. And the customers don't take it seriously, right? Because we're giving it away for free, right? So they don't give it the attention it deserves either. And then the other thing that can happen is that we're giving away services to customers who don't need them, right? Bundling up services that they only use half-heartedly and they never really use them anyway. I think a really good example of this is training, right? Thinking about when you give away training for free, right? When you give it away, training that is then considered a necessary evil. You provide training modules to customers free of charge. They're poorly organized and loosely coordinated because no one's really taken them seriously, which means there's poor quality of training material. Customers consider supplier training as nice to have because they're not paying for it, so half the employees attend, half don't. They attend some of the sessions, they attend other, they don't attend others, so they never really get the full picture. And it ends up being a huge disaster, right? Because your employees don't want to take part in the training and deliver the training because they know it's got a bad reputation. However, consider if you charge for training, right? You recognize customers' need for the training. You charge for it based on the value that it provides. And you secure resources inside TELUS and you motivate employees to deliver it. You deliver a professional program that benefits everyone. There's an improved quality of training material. Customers receive maybe a training certificate for doing that program, so they value it. And customers employees actively ask for the training because they've heard it's so good and other people want to receive it as well, right? So here's the thing that I want you to think about, moving from free to fee, and think about the idea that if you can't bill it, TELUS should kill it. I like that, don't you? Anyway, it took me ages to come up with that one. So, why do we need a pricing strategy? So remember, pricing is a positive decision by a company. It's got to be based on some logic, and we'll talk about that later. It should be consistent with the other P's of marketing, your integrated marketing communications, your distribution channels, and the products that you're selling. But also remember, pricing is the only element of marketing that actually brings in revenue rather than cost, right? So that's why we've got to be aggressive, proactive, seek to demonstrate value rather than being on the back foot and trying to negotiate away the value that we're providing at the first opportunity, rather than being on the front foot and showing people the value that we're providing. So again, but pricing's so complex, right? Think about providing internet to a business customer. What's the real cost of providing the service to a customer? How do we share the network costs? What are the real costs of installation, of the technology, of the ongoing providing of maintenance of that network? What's the real value to the customers? Different customers will value the internet completely differently to others. How do we price for that? How do we price differently, right? And also from a customer's point of view, what really is price? right? Because we often throw in discounts, long-term contracts. So what really is the price that we're actually paying in the long run as well? So behind all of these notes, I've got in all of these slides, I've got extra notes in. There's no point in me repeating them. You can read them. So I'm only focusing on the extra value. Think of the hey, I'm not charging for this. What the heck? I'm providing this for free. I've got to charge a fee for this. Right. Okay, so if you can each send me $5 for this audio, that would be great. So, pricing process, doing a pricing audit, pricing objectives, and setting price adjustments. And we're going to zero in particular on customer psychology when it comes to pricing. I think it's a very exciting area, as well as the idea of free to fee. Again, I'm not really going to concentrate on this too much. The idea is that your pricing will have a ceiling and a floor, right? Your floor is basically the bottom of your prices, and obviously costs usually dictate the bottom, the lowest price that you can charge. But so could your competitors, right? They could have a floor that you need to relate to. There could be legal constraints. There could be government regulations which prevent you from charging prices higher than a particular area as well, right? And there could be a ceiling based on government regulations as well. Consumer attitudes, channel support, potential competitor, all of those might set a ceiling as well. But most importantly, what's very likely to set a floor or a ceiling is your marketing objectives. What are you trying to achieve with your pricing? What image do you have in the marketplace, and what are you trying to create in the long term as well? Okay, so there you go. Lots of examples underneath it as well, but I'll let you read some of those in a little bit more detail. Okay, pricing goals and objectives. Again, this is entirely dependent on the organization objectives, but also dependent on your product line as well. So some products in your product line, you might be looking to, there might be a cash cow, so you're maximizing return on investment and profits. Because they're a product that's been around for a while and you want to get your return on investment, or if it's a new product, you might be looking to maximize volume and get your foot in the door. So it kind of all depends on what you're trying to do with your brand image and your product line that you have as well, right? Okay, so there you go, some more examples for that below. Now, new product pricing. So this is obviously something that is totally dependent on what you're trying to achieve as well. Essentially, there are three broad strategies. One, competitive pricing, where you decide that you want to price based on what everyone else is roughly pricing, and then you're going to try and differentiate yourself maybe on better customer service or like puppy, monkey, baby, better branding, right? We're going to have a better image than everyone else. The future is friendly, right? So we're not going to compete on price. We're going to be roughly the same as everyone else, but we're going to differentiate ourselves based on maybe customer intimacy or on another aspect such as our brand that we've created in our customers' eyes as well. Penetration pricing is basically where you price low to get your foot in the door and capture large market share, right? So you want people to buy your product, grab market share, so people can use it, trial it, and tell other people about it as well, right? You're not looking to make money, you're just looking to get people to know who you are. And then the more regular strategy, however, is price skimming, particularly for high technology products where you're first to market, maybe Xbox One, for example, or with a new smartphone. Basically, you're price skimming, you're selling at the top, or at the maximum you can sell, because you've got the innovators and the early adopters who want to get their hands on it quickly, and so they're willing to pay more than other people. And then when the laggards come in, they're not willing to pay as much, so that's when you start lowering your prices. But you skim the market by selling as high as possible. Okay, some more examples there below as well, right? How are prices actually set? So really it's either based on costs, based on customers, the value perception that the customers have, which is obviously dependent on how you demonstrate the value, or is it based on competition, right? You're basing it on what the competition are doing. So really call it the pricing tripod, right? So basically cost, competition, or value to the customer. Now, as I say here, value is the way to go. And then you go all the way through the slides, you've got the Colgate toothpaste image, which of course reared its beautiful head in the residency as well, when Amazon kindly delivered it to me by the beautiful team on the final day. Again, they're trying to create value, right? This is a toothpaste that whitens your teeth, provides fluoride. This is worth paying much more than a regular toothpaste for as well, right? So the main approaches to pricing. So cost-based pricing is essentially now all of your pricing is based on cost, right? Whether it's a cost-based pricing or value-based pricing, competition-based pricing, you need to know your cost, right? But the idea of cost-based pricing is that your cost gives you an understanding of what you're going to charge next. So, for example, you might say that we want a markup of 40%. Okay, so we understand our cost is $100, so we're going to charge $140, right? So it's based on the cost of the product. Okay, so your cost of the product drives what you're going to charge to your customers. With value-based pricing, of course, you still need to know your cost, because you could be pricing yourself below what you cost, but you're not using your costing as a way of setting the price to your customers. What you're using to set the price is the value that customers get from it, right? And that's your job, is to demonstrate the value, So, for example, are you saving customers time? Are you more convenient? Will it make the customer more productive? All of those things come into play. Will they save psychological costs in using you because they feel maybe safer, for example, or you're a stronger brand? And then competition-based pricing we've done already. Basically, you're trying to match yourself with the market. Okay, so this slide here is essentially about the idea that we must understand the costs. Okay, so what I want you to think about is the value equation. So there are basically, the way that we create value with a customer is two ways. One, we can increase the benefits the customers receive from us and keep the costs the same. Now, this slide shows you that costs are not just the price that the customer pays. It is obviously the purchase price, but it's the operating cost. So if they've got a network that they've purchased from TELUS, the cost of maintaining that network. But it's also the time and the energy they put into that in terms of the purchase and service encounter costs. The search costs, so when they were searching for a provider, they had to spend time searching for a provider. That's a sunk cost, right? And they're still thinking about that. The psychological costs in switching from one service provider to another, and also post-purchase costs, right? Problem solving, if they have a problem with that. All of these are costs, okay? So price is only one part of a cost, right? Then on the other side of the equation are the benefits the customers get from your product, like productivity, saving time, the image that they have. Wearing an Apple Watch might send out a particular image, right? There are benefits. So your job as a marketer is to increase value, and the two broad ways of doing that are: number one, increasing the benefits that customers perceive they're getting from your product, but keeping the cost the same. All those costs that are in front of you right now. Or alternatively, lowering your costs, so making it easier for your customers to buy in terms of search costs, or the price that they're paying, or the physical effort that they have to put in, and you keep the benefits the same, right? So you can keep the benefits the same and lower the costs, okay, or increase the benefits customers are getting from your products and keep the costs the same. That's the two broad ways. And basically, this slide is a great slide of showing you that costs come in so many different shapes and sizes: search costs, purchase costs, and post-purchase costs as well. Now, price adjustment strategies. We're going to zero in quickly on the last one, which is customer psychology. Now, there are basically four ways of bringing in psychology into pricing, right? And we've done some of them already. So the first one is anchoring. Remember, we did anchoring. So let me just give you a quick example of anchoring. There was a recent study done where a large legal firm is preparing a pitch for a large European bank. The contract is for 16,000 hours, okay, of lawyers' work per year from that legal firm, and it's in different parts of the legal system. So it's on labor law, consulting, IP, real estate, litigation, tax, etc. And it's across the whole of Europe, right? So very comprehensive. And what they did was they asked the people involved in this experiment, 400 people, do you think the hourly rate that the legal firm is going to charge is above 480 euros an hour? Right? And 31% said yes, I think it is. 69% said no. And then the other 200 people, they said, do you think the hourly rate is over 180 euros? And 63% said yes, I think it will be more than 180 euros. And 37 said no. And then they asked two groups separately, now estimate how much do you think they will actually charge per hour? And the group that anchored onto the 480, they said $390 euros per hour. And the group that got the 180, do you think it will be 180? And 63% said yes, it will be more than 180. Their estimate of the hourly rate was $235. How incredible is that? 390 versus 235, just because they anchored on something completely different. The dual entitlement idea is that this is about really fairness with pricing. And the idea with the dual entitlement strategy is basically depending on, it's almost like the contrast effect. You know, is that pricing fair? Okay, and depending on their sense of whether the company is a greedy company or a reasonable company, they'll see your pricing as fair. So in this study, they said you use an office alarm system and you pay a $35 subscription per month, and they're going to increase this to $39. Okay, so a $4 increase per month. And they said that the same day you receive this bill, you hear that this alarm company has posted an $11.2 million loss for that quarter. Is that fair? Okay, and 70% said yes, that price increase is fair. Okay, now when they said, however, the company had posted an $11.2 million profit to another set of 200 people, right? Now only 30% of people think that's fair. Okay, so equity and pricing is very much the framing that you give in terms of when you're raising prices and whether people think it's fair. The decoy effect is similar that we did in class in terms of the contrast. Remember the economics example we did in the residency? And this is basically giving an asymmetric effect. And this is the last example that I'll leave you with, and then we'll close. So this one, in this research here that was done recently, what they did was, sorry, I'm just going to my example here. They basically said, let's assume you have to decide on a security system for your company office. You screen several suppliers, and 2 offers made it to the final round. Okay, I love this example, by the way. You scored all offers on several factors. Maximum would be 100 points. Which one would you choose? Okay, so the first group got two examples. One was System A was priced $8,900 for the security system, and they scored 69 out of 100 on the ranking of the performance or the quality of that alarm system, right? 34% said they would choose the $8,900 one, and then the other one was System B, $11,000 for the alarm system, and it scored 81. So 69 out of 100 for the first one, 89 for the second one, and this one was priced at 11,000. 65% went for this one, okay, or 66%, 65.6%. So basically, it was really hard to choose between them. 65 went for one, 34 went for the other. Because they saw there was a little bit of difference in the quality of them, and you paid $2,100 more, right? Now, when they gave them the same 2 options again, so the $8,900 one at 69 out of 100 for the performance score, and 81 out of 100 for System B, okay, but then they threw in the decoy, which was the third option, which is the asymmetric option, which was 18,000 for an alarm system that only scored 83 out of 100 on its performance. So now you're contrasting the 81 out of 100 for 11,000 versus the 83 out of 100 for the 18,000, and now 77% go for the 11,000 one because you've thrown in the decoy effect, whereas in the last one it was 65.6%. So a 10% increase in customer choice simply based on throwing in an asymmetric option, and that was very similar to what we did in class in terms of the economics example. And then finally, moment of power number 5, loss aversion. Remember the AT&T example? You know, when we present scenarios as that you might lose, people are more likely to go for that particular price, right? Whereas if you present it as a gain. And we did those examples in the class and in the Moments of Power as well, right? And then finally in the book, in the chapter, there are pricing issues, putting strategy into practice. So how do you actually execute on your pricing? And they talk about 7 different things that you need to do. That's covered really well in the book. I'm not going to go through that in any more detail at all. So there you go, summary. Think about moving from free to fee. Think about cost pricing versus competition pricing, but most importantly, think about value-based pricing, and think about the psychology involved in all of that, right? Increasing benefits, lowering costs, anchoring effect, contrast effect, loss aversion. That's really a very exciting area of pricing, a very new area that's exciting in pricing, and I think that's something we should all look at as well. At the end of the day, it's all about your pricing objectives, though. What are you trying to achieve with your company, with your brand, with your 4 Ps? And how do you align your pricing with that and be confident with your pricing and ensure that your people are confident with their pricing, particularly when they're negotiating with large value customers? I hope you enjoyed it. There's only one thing to say, ding dong.